Guys, before we jump into this video, I just want to take a quick second to thank the sponsor of this video, Bioprotein Technology, the makers of BioPro Plus. I've been using this product for quite a few months now, and it is a game changer. Basically, it's a non-synthetic growth hormone alternative. You take it orally, and it helps all kinds of things like your libido, your energy levels. It's amazing. So more info in the description. You can use my code and save $30 on a month's supply. Big thanks to Bioprotein Technology for being our sponsor. Let's get into the video.
Aren't you insulting all the intelligent people here and the 80% of African Americans who are Democrats by claiming that the current Democratic Party has anything to do with that Dixiecrat party from 50 years ago that was trying to stop them from voting? Aren't you conflating the word Democrat with progressive? They have utterly nothing to do with.
Well, to be honest, today's Democrat Party is run by the farthest left wing of the party. So they're basically synonyms, progressive and Democrat today.
Each other. The current Democratic Party has absolutely none of those values from 50 years ago, and you're pretending that they are guilty of something. Aren't you trying to claim that Jesse Jackson is a dupe and shouldn't be supporting the Democratic Party because Abraham Lincoln?
Real quick, and I'll let it go. I would say that that's a bit disingenuous. You could make two really easy arguments that the Democrat Party is still fairly aligned with the way it used to be. I mean, it's fairly undeniable that the welfare state as it is in our country today absolutely oppresses, suppresses, whatever word you want to use, Black Americans, because it's an incentive not to make something of yourself. I saw this happen with my own mother. She purposefully avoided work so she could keep getting benefits. So you can never get ahead with a situation like that. And then secondly, I mean, look, the Democrat Party absolutely supports an organization started by a eugenicist, Margaret Sanger, who explicitly created Planned Parenthood to eliminate Black people. I mean, there are plenty of quotes where she's saying just that. So I don't know. I would say they're still fairly aligned with a lot of those very racist ideologies. It's obviously shielded by all this fluffy language, and they spin it, but that's just my thought.
Was a Republican and freed the slaves?
The Democratic Party was the party of the Dixiecrats all the way through the 60s. And if what you say is true, that the blacks made a switch to their racial friends, it would appear that the black switch would have to come in the 70s and 80s, when blacks see these racists are now moving over there, so it makes sense for us to move over here. But in reality, blacks moved overwhelmingly to the Democratic Party in the 1930s. The black vote went from about 15% Democratic to about 70% Democratic within 4 years.
So what he's saying there is basically, if you think that there was a party switch, or however it's phrased, Black Americans who were historically Republican, because the Republican Party was the anti-slavery party, would have switched essentially during that period of time. So in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but they didn't. They actually switched far earlier in the 30s, right? In like a 4-year time, I think he said. So that kind of disproves that argument, right? That during Jim Crow era, when we had civil rights, now all of a sudden the Republican Party becomes somehow the party of racists and Black people all switched to the Democrat Party. That wasn't the case. The Democrats, or Black people, switched to the Democrats decades before that, and I think he's going to explain why.
The places they could vote.
That's right, but
which was the North.
Also in the
Republican. Jackie Robinson was a Republican for darn good reason.
That's absolutely right. But here's what I'm getting at.
He wouldn't be today.
This guy keeps interrupting.
Well, we can debate Jackie Robinson because it's always difficult to know what dead people would say. If Martin Luther King were alive today, Martin Luther King isn't alive today. Okay, but here's the point I'm getting at. The reason that blacks switched from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party had everything to do with the benefits of the New Deal and nothing to do with racism. In fact, yes, and in the South, too, blacks switched to the Democratic Party. It's not that blacks couldn't vote in the South. It's that there were all kinds of barriers to black voting.
This guy is ridiculous, man. So he just keeps interrupting Dinesh, saying that blacks only switched to the Democrat Party in the North, which isn't true. They switched in the South. He's saying that they didn't switch in the South because they couldn't vote, which is also not true. There were just barriers to voting, like literacy tests and things like that. However, there were plenty of I even know this, and I'm not a history expert. There were plenty of black Democrats in the South who voted. And according to Dinesh here, it's because of the New Deal, because they wanted those incentives and policies that FDR was promising. And this guy, he just keeps interrupting him. You can tell he's angry and he's emotional. It's also quite ironic, just saying in this exchange, you have a white professor arguing with a person of color over these issues. Not saying that gives Dinesh any authority, but it's just hilarious to observe. A lot of times in these exchanges, you'll have some white liberal screaming at a black or Indian or some other person of color who's a conservative. And it's just like, do you not see the irony in this? That's why they called Larry Elder the blackface of white supremacy, by the way. It's just funny. Crazy world.
Under FDR, there was blacks couldn't vote in the South at all. No blacks voted in the South.
Very, very few.
How many? How many?
He doesn't know.
Okay. I thought so. Look, there were all kinds of poll taxes and barriers imposed by the Democrats on the black vote until the Democrats realized that they could get the black vote by offering jobs, welfare, retirement programs. Are you telling me that FDR in the South was telling blacks who were voting for the Democrats, you can't vote? Not true. Not true. Blacks in the North and the South switched to the Democratic Party because of New Deal benefits. Many of them were very sad about doing it because they were leaving the party of emancipation and Lincoln and flinging themselves into the party of the Ku Klux Klan and the Dixiecrats who were in the South and were in the Democratic Party. Exactly. So what I'm saying is it was a Faustian bargain in which you...
Okay, I actually had to look this up. I didn't know what a Faustian bargain was, and just in case you guys don't either. A Faustian bargain is a pact whereby a person trades something of supreme moral or spiritual importance, such as personal values or the soul, for some worldly or material benefits such as knowledge, power, or riches. So essentially what Dinesh is saying here is that black Americans had to make this judgment call and say, all right, well, the Democrats are the racists, right? The Republicans are the party of Abe Lincoln who fought to end slavery. But now the Democrats are offering all these benefits, right? All of these worldly or material benefits, as this definition says. So the Faustian bargain is, gosh, do I want to join the party of the racists for all these benefits? And essentially that is what happened. Black Americans made that Faustian bargain, joined the Democrat Party because they were handing out benefits, and FDR wanted to push the New Deal. And then, of course, I think later it was Truman who had the Great Societies Act, which enacted largely the welfare state as we know it today. But that's what the Faustian bargain is. I had to look it up, so I just thought in case anybody else out there who didn't know what a Faustian bargain is, that's what it is. Let's keep rolling.
You get economic benefits, and at the same time, you're in bed with the racists and you're on your own team.
Right.
And I'm saying that's American history. Now, whites began to switch to the Republican Party, but much later. Whites began to switch to the Republican Party in droves in the 70s and 80s. Now, here's the point. If you look at racial opinion in the South, and there's a voluminous body of data on this, as racism in the South dramatically declines, the Southern identification with the Republican Party begins to increase. There's an opposite track. Racism is declining in the South, and whites begin to move to the Republican Party. In fact, two scholars who've written a book about this trace that the least racist Southerners all became Republicans. That the poor white racist Democrat never became a Republican. He was a dug-in Democrat to the end of his days. So the Democratic Party remained the party of racism. And as the South became less agrarian, more prosperous, industry came to the South, the post-industrial society, the Republican appeal of equal opportunity, free markets, prosperity, appealed to Southerners. And that's why so what I'm getting at is that the progressives have sold the South on a guilt trip. Even this whole thing about, the Civil War was really about slavery and the South did slavery. Wait a minute. Again, the Northern Democrats protected slavery. The Civil War, the fight over slavery, was between the Democratic Party, North and South, that protected it, and the Republican Party, which only was in the North, that opposed it. That's what that fight was about. It wasn't just the North-South thing is now a disguise to hide the responsibility of a major political party that was the party of slavery for 100 years. True or false?
Okay, so that I found to be a pretty enlightening video. I had never heard it put quite that way. It really made me think, and a lot of what Dinesh says makes sense. Obviously, I want to do a little more research, a little more reading, but it does all make sense. And another thing I was thinking as he was saying all that, so the Republican Party is today, obviously, the party of conservatism, right? Our conservatives in America largely side with the Republican Party when they vote. So in a post-civil rights era, once you've achieved sort of that last big monumental step for our society, that's essentially when you saw what Dinesh said start happening in the 70s and 80s. You saw whites switch to the Republican Party. Perhaps it's because, and maybe not, this is just me thinking out loud, perhaps it's because you've now achieved civil rights. And like I said before in another video, the goal of every progressive should be to become a conservative, because that means you've obtained your progressive goals and now you want to conserve them. Perhaps there was some of that. Well, all right, we've achieved everything we were fighting for. Now let's conserve it. Now let's enforce, especially in the South, as Dinesh said, meritocracy, sort of prosperity-based capitalist goals, instead of continuing to push and push and push for all these programs that incentivize people not to work, people to live off the government, right? And the Democrat Party then became the party that wants more and more and more government involved in your lives. And sort of once the civil rights goal was obtained, conservatives said, okay, let's keep government out of our lives past this extent. We're good. Let us live our lives. And Democrats wanted to keep doing it. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a history guy, but it's very interesting. It's an interesting thought experiment. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about all of this. I think Dinesh does a good job communicating here. And I'm pretty sure that professor probably regretted bringing that up. Seemed Dinesh was well prepared to counter his arguments. But you always hear this as a very generalized, well, yes, the Republicans ended slavery. The Republicans were the ones against racism, and the Democrats wanted slavery, etc. And then, of course, Democrats even fought, through the Jim Crow South to maintain segregation. But you just hear this generalization that, but the party switched, like there was some arbitrary switch of parties. It makes a lot of sense when Dinesh puts it in this context. I had never looked at it from the frame of, and I didn't know a lot of Black Americans made that Faustian bargain to switch to the Democrat Party because of the New Deal. And I would guess also because of the Great Societies Act. All right. I appreciate you guys. Please subscribe to the channel. Please throw me a like on this video if you got some value out of it. Make sure you turn on the notification bell because YouTube does not want to show you content like this. I love you all. Until next time, keep your minds free.